So for the last talk of this business track, before the closing notes, we invited Alex Melen, which is an award-winning entrepreneur and keynote speaker, no less. Last century, in 1997, he founded a T35 hosting company, which he ran for 10 years. And then he founded Smartsites, an advertising company that is managing 100 million in advertising spend per year. So in the current economic climate, he's going to tell us how to make the most of each marketing dollar that you invest into your business. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. That was a great intro. I appreciate it. Is there water I can grab on my way up? Thank you. Thank you. Is there a clicker? How do I click? Oh, there's a clicker up here. This is perfect. This is perfect. The slides are on my left. I know I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to have to start a timer. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. So today I'm going to be talking about marketing, which I think is a very important topic, and it feels a little bit underrepresented at this conference, but I'm glad I'm here to wrap it up with a really exciting marketing session. So I'm going to be talking about how to scale e-commerce with Omni-Channel Marketing. This is a very in-depth session that covers really all the areas of marketing, and it's probably an hour and a half session that I'm going to get in the next 20 minutes. So I'm going to speak quick, but I'm going to have all my contact info after. I'm more than happy to send you the slides, the video recording that's rolling in the back that'll hopefully work, and answer any questions as well. So let's get rolling. So a little bit about me before we jump in. I've actually been involved in the tech space for a very long time. It's me over there, real life picture from 1991 on a i386 computer, for those that were around back then and know the computers. I started my first company in 1997, T35 Hosting, which at the time was one of the first web hosting companies. So this is the era of GeoCities, Hypermart, Tripod, for those that have been around since then. And then I started Smartsites with my younger brother in 2011, which is, even that's already coming up on 12 years. A little bit about Smartsites. So we're at over 300 full-time employees. We've been in business over 11 years, thousands of clients. And the reason I bring all this up is just to give you a little bit of my background. And hopefully today I'm going to try to distill some of the experiences I've had marketing e-commerce, specifically Magento, and really bring it to you guys in the next 20 to 30 minutes. All right, off we go. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about digital trends since the pandemic. We're going to talk about how to navigate the ever-changing landscape in digital. I have a great client case study for you guys, and then I have some takeaways at the end. Cool. Before I jump in, how many of you guys here have a Magento store? Like you operate a Magento? Perfect. So you guys are in the right place. Just making sure you're attending the right session. So I'll go through the next couple of slides, but before I jump in, I want to say that having been involved in tech and marketing, all this for a very, very long time, I would say for those of you, obviously the majority of you here with an e-commerce store, I think now are probably some of the more challenging times that I've seen, right? But also the biggest opportunity. I have never seen such a big opportunity and such a quick shift, and we'll go through the slides shortly, but such a quick shift into e-commerce. So I think you guys are in the right place, and both with your business and attending the session. But I think it's huge opportunity, as you'll see through some of these slides as we go through. So digital trends since the pandemic. This is e-commerce penetration as percent of all retail sales in the U.S. So as you guys witness yourself being in e-commerce over the last couple of years, the pandemic really caused a huge shift into digital, right? And I have data a little bit more recent since the pandemic started, and it's come down a tiny bit, but we're still pretty much up there. So again, all digest this chart. This chart just represents what percent of all retail transactions in the U.S. are happening online. So the pandemic, as you see, has caused such a huge acceleration, and we really stayed at that level. And it's really, if you've looked at all the forecasts before the pandemic, we really jumped 10 years within a 3-month period as the pandemic hit. At the same time, e-commerce cost per click, advertising cost has gone up. This is from our internal data of over 500 clients in this space. So this is the cost per click by month to advertise. I think this was specifically on Google Ads, but you could see that while the opportunity is there and more people are shopping online, the cost to advertise has increased. And I'm sure this is what you guys have been seeing as well. Sorry, I'm going to open this water. Should have done that before. All right. So the challenge is obviously, how do you acquire customers? Challenge for us. How do we acquire for our clients? How do we acquire customers for our clients and ensure profitability? So I'm going to walk you through a case study for a specific e-commerce client that we worked with over the last. Actually, very recently, last year, 2 years. So this is all very recent stuff. And I'll walk you through what we've done that's been successful for them. So before I jump into a case study, the client makes koozies. So that's those things on the beer cans, right? That you buy to keep the beer or drink colder. So that's a client we'll be talking about today. Their pain points when they came to us is frequent ad feed disapprovals. They had a lot of different messaging happening between all their advertising. They weren't optimizing correctly for the correct products. And they also had a lack of reliability from the pixel and conversion data. And really, what I typically see is really the disconnect between all of this that kind of snowballs and causes the issues. Does this ring any bell for people in the room? The feed disapproval, the pixel issues, conversion issues. Kind of makes sense, day-to-day struggles. So we worked on it for them, and sorry, I'll go back. The solution that we worked on for this client is really the entire marketing spectrum, which is pay-per-click, SEO, and CRM. So this is our pay-per-click process that we do for just general account management. So it's really all of these things that we do on an ongoing basis that actually makes an account successful. So it's not just the setting up the account and leaving it. For those that are running it themselves, if you're set up your pay-per-click campaigns and just leave it on autopilot, I promise you're not getting good results. For this client specifically, we focused on relevant keywords, audience ads. It's the right customer at the right time, right? You have to make sure you're presenting the right message at the right parts of the consumer journey. You want to go after upper funnel searches just as much as the lower funnel. I feel like in pay-per-click advertising, it's always easier to go after the lower funnel when someone's actually searching for your product. You bid on that keyword, right? But you're not going to expand your customer base without going to upper funnel. Of course, product feeds are becoming more and more important, and there's not even a demand anymore. There's now an expectation from consumers for your ads to be personalized. I'll give you a little example of what we did here. So completely different ads for different parts in the journey that we did for pay-per-click for them. So these are the discovery ads on the left side to get from new customers. In the middle is shopping ads just to get the actual sale, to show examples. And for them, they let you customize these koozies, right? So they do for every occasion, for weddings, for parties. So it's about getting the right ones in front of the right people at the right time. And then, of course, you want to retain the customers and keep them coming back with remarketing and other ways to engage them. Sorry, I just went through a lot in 5 minutes. So that was the pay-per-click part of it. Obviously, it's a lot more complex than that, but I think the overall message stays the same, that you really, more so than ever, have to target the right people at the right time with the right message. And again, I think at some point it was okay not to, but as we move into end of 2022 into 2023, I think the consumer expects it so much at this point that if you target them with the wrong messaging at the wrong time, or the messaging is very generic and not personalized, they're just not going to click it. So you just have to be in that kind of mindset as you put together your pay-per-click strategy. Next up is SEO, which is one of my favorite topics, and I do actually an entire keynote on SEO, which is 2 hours long, but we'll get that down for you guys in 5 minutes or less. Or I'll do my best. So this slide has literally my 2-hour keynote. Let's break it down. So SEO could be broken down into these two areas on the left. So you have what's Google Maps, right? Called in the SEO community, it's a Google Local Pack. Otherwise, for everyone else here, referred to as Google Maps. On the bottom, you actually have the localized results. And these two are completely different. So if you have a physical store, the top one's probably going to be a little bit more important to you, although I would still say both are as important. If you don't have a physical store, the bottom one's more important. But the big point I want to stress is they're both completely different. The ranking for them is completely different, and the ranking signals are completely different. So up here on the right side, what I have is actually the Google ranking signal. So I know everyone's taking pictures. On the next slide, I have a better summary of it. So Google obviously does not disclose their algorithm, and no one knows what drives rankings. But there's an annual survey that's done by the top SEO experts, and they actually, as a community, put together what they're seeing in the industry that's driving rankings based on their own internal case studies. So this is as close as we'll ever get to actually knowing what influences your Google rankings. So let's go through it. So at the top is for Google Maps, and again, this is relevant if you have a physical location. Number one fact, and this changes, by the way, every year. I don't think I have it in this deck, but I have, if those interested, I could send you the overtime ranking signals. And at some point, social was actually a part of it. That's always a very common question that I get asked. Social is now not a ranking signal whatsoever. So anything you do on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it is, will not influence how you rank on Google. And I get asked that all the time. It will not influence it in any way. So let's take it from the top. For a Google Maps listing, number one thing that influences your Google Maps listing is your Google My Business profile. It's not called Google My Business anymore. They just rebranded, but for my own sanity, I'm going to call it Google My Business today. Number one is Google My Business profile. So if you have a local physical store, you want to make sure everything's filled out. You want to make sure your hours are there. You have pictures there. You have every single field possible filled out. The amount and how well it's filled out and how accurate it is the number one factor in how well you'll rank for the Google Maps listing. Number two is reviews. So that one's an interesting one. So obviously it's very tough to influence reviews, but what people don't realize is there's a couple things that go into reviews. Number one, having more reviews is good, obviously. Having good reviews is good, right? The more 5-star reviews you have, the higher and more often you'll be coming up in Google, as it's a very prominent ranking signal. But what people don't realize is the content of the reviews is equally as important. And although it's something that's very hard to actually influence, it's something very powerful. So I'll give you guys a real life example. Since we're in New York City here, if you're a coffee shop in New York City and you specialize in Colombian coffee, let's say, if a lot of people in your reviews say, I went to this coffee shop and I really like their Colombian coffee, someone goes on Google and searches coffee shop that serves Colombian coffee, you'll actually come up higher because your reviews mention Colombian coffee. Does that make sense? So the content of the reviews actually influences your ranking. And again, it's very hard to influence reviews. You can't be like standing at the door of your coffee shop as people leave and telling everyone, you have to leave us a review and mention these 3 points in this order. I want to make sure you say we have the best Colombian coffee. So there's obviously challenges, but it's at the very least, it's very important to note that how important that is. And if you have a physical location, you really have to think about how you, at the very least, suggest people leave reviews, and not just a 5-star review with no content. Every piece of content in there will affect your rankings. After that is on-page and links. So on-page is the quantity and quality of your content and technical fixes on your website. So you want to make sure that your website doesn't have any technical errors. You want to make sure you're following all of Google's best practices. Then you want to make sure you have quantity and quality of content, and you're actually creating new, unique content on a regular basis. So those two, as you could see, even for Google Maps is super important. It's even more important for the next section when we get to it. After that, we have behavioral. So behavioral is a little trickier. So that's the time on site. Obviously, Google doesn't want you to have a bad page experience. Google recently, for Google Ads and organic, explicitly said they're going to seriously penalize websites that have poor experiences, like too many ads or pop-ups. They actually came out with guidelines of how many ads you could have to not be penalized. So that falls into behavioral. Citations are your different directories that link to you. So think of the Yelps of the world and all these different profiles that link to you. You want to make sure you have that obviously you have profiles on these directories, but you want to make sure that all the information is correct and matches across the board. If you have different phone numbers in different places or different write-ups, or one links to your website with a www, one doesn't, that's going to hurt you a little bit. Of course, we come down to small percentages that are influencing it, so it's not a big percent, but it's also important. And personalization is the last one. That one's kind of the hardest to optimize for. That's something like if the user is using Spanish speaking and their computer is actually set to Spanish and they have a Spanish keyboard, and they search on Google and your website is in Spanish, it'll actually come up higher than a website that's not in Spanish because it's being personalized and localized. But that becomes obviously a small part. All right, now we're going to drop down to localized organic results. So localized organic results is what's the most important if you don't have a physical location. So if you search for something that you don't have the top thing that comes up with the map, that's what actually comes up. So for that, if you look at the right side, it's actually very similar. Obviously, Google My Business is not as important, but it's very similar things that we look at. So in that case, on-page and links are the two single most important factors. And they've always been, and they've become more and more important every single year. So again, to summarize the on-page and links, as long as you fix all the technical things on your website, that leaves getting links to your website, right? You want authoritative and relevant websites to link to you. That's always been the formula for Google ever since Google was invented, right? The way Google knows who to rank higher when you do a search is that if other authoritative, relevant websites link to you, Google considers your content more important. So you always want to be working on links, and links are very tricky. As an industry in SEO, we've gone through a lot of very difficult periods where there was a lot of black hat stuff going on and link farms and buying links. So all of that's not allowed, right? You can't buy links, you can't trade links. Google wants these links to happen organically. So what that means is you come out with a revolutionary product that gets linked by CNN and Fox. Google will rank you higher because those sites link to you. That's how they want the process to be. But there's still ways to actually work around that. You really want to actively work on other websites linking to you. So some strategies might be do a Google search, the guys that come up first. You can actually see who links to them, and then reach out to those websites and say, hey guys, you're linking to my competitor, link to me also. So that's always has to be an ongoing effort. If you don't have a lot of websites linking to you, you can't just wait for all of a sudden these sites to start linking to you. You can't buy the links, you can't trade the links. It has to be an outbound effort. On page we already talked about, but you have to be creating content, of course, and it's the same things that we talked about before, but in different order. Behavioral is a little bit more important for these. Everything else is kind of smaller on the bottom. So for those that are taking pictures, this is the one to take a picture of, right? This is the same thing shown in a table, but this literally, the latest update of this study was done 9 months ago. But this is the latest and greatest of what will influence your Google rankings. And in red is what I would focus on and what my company focuses on for our clients. So I'll take a quick pause here for pictures. Celebrity pictures. I'll take a picture with it up by the slide. All right, so for this client specifically, and it's literally, we followed the strategy that I just talked about, right? For them, we created a fun yet SEO-friendly blog. So that's the way to keep creating unique content, right? So when you're when you're in e-commerce, it gets a little bit trickier than, for example, you're a local realtor, you could create a page about every town that you service. You could create a page about local events in those towns. It's a little bit easier. With the e-commerce, the lowest hanging fruit are usually category pages, right? You want to create as many of those as logically makes sense, and then you really move on to something like a blog or some way to repeatedly create content. And I'll say one more thing. For category pages, it could be really, really powerful. And I encourage everyone to think about those as a way to create unique content. And I'll give you an example. We have a client who sells socks, right? Very simple product. Everyone sells socks. They sell like their business socks, fancy socks, right? Fun socks. How do you create content around that? For category pages, we actually, and the client actually led this effort themselves, but they started creating category pages around different packs. So you have a 3-pack, 4-pack, 5-pack of different colors, right? This is the blue collection, right? And that every single one of those category pages you create, as long as you add unique content to it, will actually start ranking. So if someone searches, I don't know, blue shades of socks, this page will come up because it shows their collections are blue shades. Similarly, they start doing holiday packs, right? For every single, everywhere in the world, but specifically in the US, there's a lot of holidays, right? You could create holiday collections for pretty much every 2 weeks. You could have a holiday collection for a different holiday. And those are all category pages. And you don't take them down when the holiday ends, right? You just leave those category pages and they'll continue to rank on Google. So in this case, we did that. We did the blog posts, link building to increase search rankings, and embedding product links, and obviously the typical SEO optimizations. This is how it looks actually when you implement it. So on the left side is just a third-party SEO tool to see links go up. So you want to have more and more actually domains linking to you, not just one website that links to you, right? So that's a measure we follow. And on the right side, this is a cool trick, by the way, if you guys don't know. If you go to google.com and you do site and then the semicolon, then you put your domain, you could see how many index pages you have in Google. So this demonstrates the amount of pages we created for the client that actually are indexed in Google and they get results from. All right, so that was the end of SEO. That was 5 minutes as promised. So I'm going really quick, but again, I think we'll have hopefully a couple minutes for QA after, and then I'm around after this as well if anyone has any questions. So this is the third part. This is CRO and email marketing. So this is something that's unique to the e-commerce space, right? You could technically do CRO, email marketing in any space, but it's by far the most powerful in e-commerce. So the focus of CRO should be acquisition, conversion, post-purchase, and retention. These all 4 are very unique. I think there's actually a couple of vendors here today at the conference that literally specialize in CRO and email marketing. They won't necessarily do it for you, but they give you the tools to do it. And we actually partner with a lot of these companies and help our clients to utilize this. I'll say for e-commerce, if you're not doing some kind of CRO or email marketing in 2022, you're at a big competitive disadvantage, and you're going to hurt on lifetime value. People who are about to purchase from you, you should be doing your best to convert to purchase from you. And people who purchase from you, you should be doing your best to get the repeat purchase. You should be doing your best to have them refer people. You should be doing your best for those people to become your advocates. If you're not doing that, you're severely diminishing the lifetime value of every purchase. So for this client specifically, for CRO, we used it to prevent abandoned carts with on-site incentives, return hard-won site visitors, and this was Shopify specifically, but Magento would be very similar, but they use third-party app integration to improve results. This is what it looks like from the email marketing perspective, right? Again, very different funnels. You want to use specific messaging to win the initial sale, specific messaging to get them come back to make another sale, and you really want to create brand ambassadors or advocates, that people that love your brand so much that they actually write you a review, they actually promote it, and they become your brand ambassadors. All right, so for the results, how am I in time? Keeping up with the pace, nice. For the results for this client specifically, after 12 months, they increased their revenue 152%, increased the conversion rate, average order. Obviously, everything goes up. Well, not obviously, but if you follow all the best practices with your pay-per-click, with your SEO, with your CRO, and are actively investing your time, energy, and money into those areas, I don't want to say it's a guarantee, but if you're doing everything correctly, you will lift your sales, your conversion rates, all these metrics, and it's literally about investing your time into it, right? If you're not creating content for SEO, you're not creating extra opportunities to rank on Google. So literally every piece of content, that's why I like to explain it, every piece of content for SEO gives you opportunity to rank. And I have a summary, so as we just covered in the last 25 minutes and 4 seconds. You need an omni-channel approach for PPC and SEO. You want to create one cohesive, unified message and experience across your platforms. So I went through like the different way you should be segmenting your messaging, but your messaging should be the same across every platform, right? Your messaging to acquire a new client should be the same on Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everything. Your remarketing banners, your remarketing messaging should be consistent across every single platform. So consistency is very important. You want to unify and optimize your customer and product data. Simplify the checkout process. Obviously, Amazon has pioneered this for years, but any friction points, and I encourage those with an e-commerce store to go to your website as a consumer and try to buy a product. Any friction point or anything that frustrates you should not be there. And the tolerance for those friction points has probably dropped to the lowest level I've ever seen, and obviously Amazon's fault and a couple other big vendors that are pushing the one-click checkout, remember all your information, but you just have to realize that that's a consumer mindset now. And of course, you want to do retargeting and keep your high-value customers coming back. So that is the 2-hour session in 26 minutes, 23 seconds. My information is up there on the right side. If you go with your phone, it'll actually connect you to my LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me, and any questions you have after this session, more than happy to answer. And if we have time, I'll take some questions now.
Yeah, we have time for 1 or 2 questions.
Perfect.
Raise your hand.
Alex, thanks. Quick question. You said that Google reviews judge your ranking on local, or I guess
on Google Maps.
Local. What about when you reply to a review that you got? Because
so I've gotten asked that every single time I present to this, I got asked that. So there's no consensus on it. The SEO experts go either way. From what I understand, it still counts for SEO perspective, but very, very little. But at the very least, consumers like to see businesses that reply. So separate from rankings, it's a good practice. Can you go into someone said, I like this coffee shop, and can you reply and say, thank you for liking our coffee shop that provides Colombian coffee.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about. Is
at a discounted rate on Thursday specials.
In your reply, that's what I tell my staff to do, is kind of touch on some keywords on the reply, but I don't know if Google.
Yeah, so the jury's still out on that. I think it'll impact it very minimally. You want the consumer to Google, for obvious reason. Google wants the consumer to do it, so I wouldn't SEO I wouldn't keyword stuff your responses. But I think it counts at least a little bit. Yes.
I would like to ask about reviews as well.
Okay.
Regarding images, if customers or users add images, does it help?
It helps. Those reviews are more oftentimes rank higher and more prominently with pictures. Also, especially Google. Google's been, in the last 6 months, has been cracking down on reviews, has been approving less and less of them. It's a big problem for small businesses. So if you have let's say a haircut salon, and you tell everyone to leave a review, they're leaving it from the haircut salon, from the same IP address. Google all of a sudden starts wiping those out, they think it's fraudulent, or someone has a new profile. The reason I'm saying all of that is that when people include a picture, they're less likely to filter out the review. So I would for sure encourage that. Yes?
I want to touch on that.
Yes?
What do you think? We have a situation in our company where people will put up an image of a product, but it's not something I want to associate my company with, and then Google puts that image as my main image on Google, when people search my company, and I'm then reporting that image to get it off.
You can't do anything. And I'll tell you tell you an interesting story. So we have a car dealership, and unfortunately, so user generated content you could flag and ask your employees to flag, but ultimately Google usually ignores. We have a client who's a car dealership, a Porsche dealership in New Jersey. They had someone that came to their dealership on a day where outside it didn't look as pretty. And this guy came on a beat-up Nissan Sentra, like 1980s Nissan Sentra, took a picture of it, posted it, and he's Google Guide level 8. So first image that loads. They reach out to him and say, can you please remove the picture? He goes, pay me 10 grand. And even with all those conversations, Google still wouldn't do anything about it. So it's tough. Google...
Google ranked a client's image over your company brand image.
They like user generated content because you could you could make the, let's say the coffee shop, you could make it look a lot prettier than it actually is. Google wants to, but that opens up opportunity obviously for abuse, like this guy who wanted 10 grand to remove the he purposely, right? Most companies wouldn't, but so what can I say? So you could like images on in Google. People could like, comment. I would encourage people to like the better ones, worst the worst ones. And if you know people who are Google local guides, encourage them to post better pictures because Google will rank Google local guides above everything else. Good question though with both of those. Questions? Cool. Any follow-up questions that you think of after the session, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to send this deck. And hopefully the video recorded in the back as well. And I got in exactly 30 minutes on the dot. Oh, it's my alarm. 30 minutes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Alex. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Please stay in this room. We'll have closing notes. So we're bringing everyone else that is outside back to the room. So don't go. And thank you everyone for coming. This was the end of the business track. And we'll wait for the Krish team to come back before I thank them, because they thank everyone, but no one's ever here to thank them. So I'll keep the mic. You're welcome. My pleasure.